Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday, happy Thursday, happy Friday, happy whatever day you are listening to this. I'm really excited that you're tuning in with me today for episode 16. So in my recorded intro, I do mention that I recommend listening to the podcast in order, which I do, but I understand now that we're at episode 16, and if you're just finding this podcast now, you might not want to go back and listen to 16 episodes right away. So we are getting to the point where you can listen to each story individually, and you don't need to know the entire story if you're not interested in it, and you can just enjoy these different mediumship stories that I'm sharing with you. So in today's episode, I want to cover a few stories that happened that weren't huge stories, but still kind of explain the journey and explain how I was experiencing different things so that it makes sense to you as well. So not every single time that I channeled a spirit was it this long 45-minute conversation or some huge deal. Sometimes it just happens where it's one little piece of information where someone will ask me something or someone will mention something and I just blurt it out. So today I want to just discuss a few experiences that happened that were still a big deal and were still really cool experiences, but they just weren't super long experiences. And this is kind of how my journey has been. It's been small things that have happened mixed with big things that have happened. And that's kind of how I've been figuring it out more day by day. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. I will pop up in your library every Tuesday when I release a new episode. And if you are on iTunes, I would love a rating and review. If you just scroll to the bottom of the page, where you leave a rating and review will be right there. It's super easy. It takes 10 seconds, and I would really appreciate it. I love reading the comments and the reviews. It's really interesting feedback. When I posted the picture on Instagram of my little black book, everyone was messaging me saying, "Oh my God, I've been waiting to see the book. I've been waiting for this." And it's interesting so that I know what you're interested in seeing, because to me, it's just this little notebook I carried around in my purse for a year. But if that's what you want to see, let me know, and I will post more of it. Okay, so let's jump right into today's episode. So I'm going to start with the two shorter stories, and then I will leave the longer story for the end. So I am now working and living, and life is settled, and everything's kind of back to normal. By this point, a lot of people in my life knew that I was a Reiki master. They knew that I had some other witch powers. They knew that I was a medium. And it's kind of normal now, which sounds weird, but just when everybody at work knows it, everyone's kind of had a little experience with it. People at the gym know, people at yoga know. So it's just one of those things where it's becoming normal more and more for me, and it's becoming more normal for the people around me as well. So the first story that I want to share is that I had someone in my circle of friends, but this person lost a sibling, and he had a necklace that had the sibling's thumbprint on it. And for some reason, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I love your necklace," and I picked it up and I touched it, and he said, "Oh, it's actually my brother's fingerprint on the back." And I dropped the necklace right away. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to just go and grab that on your neck. I just noticed that it was new and that you hadn't worn it before." And then, of course, he asked what any person would ask when you have a friend who's a medium. he said, can you actually tell me where my brother is? And I said, do you really want to get into this right now? And he was like, yeah, I just want to know where he is. And I said, okay. So I said, can I touch the necklace again? It'll be a lot easier. And he said, yeah, sure. So I held on to the necklace for a moment while it was still on his neck. I just touched the pendant. And then I said, okay, he's showing me. He's kind of at like this lake house. There's a lake, there's a dock, there's a tire swing, and then there's a house there. I'm like, maybe he's at your cabin or maybe he's at your cottage, but that's where he is right now. And he was like, oh no, that's my mom's house. And I was like, oh, okay, well then he's at your mom's house. And he was very nonchalant about it. He's like, oh wow, he's with mom. Interesting. This does happen where I'll tell someone a piece of information and then they kind of accept it as being very normal. But then either a few minutes or a few hours or a few days later, they'll come back and be like, holy shit. So at the end of the shift, he was kind of like just reflecting on it, being like, wow, I wonder like how you knew my brother was at mom's house and how'd you know what the house looked like? And I was like, oh, it's kind of all part of the gig here, but it's really nice to know that he's at home. So that was little story number 1. Little story number 2 is I was at the gym and I knew all the coaches there. I'm friends with a lot of them. And the one coach that worked there, she lost her brother. And we were talking about this one day when another friend was in the gym and we were all kind of chatting. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you lost your brother. And she said, yeah, it was many years ago. I don't like to talk about it. It's still a very sensitive subject. And I was like, oh, okay. And through our relationship, as I was there longer and longer, she had found out as well that I was a medium. And she asked me if there was ever a message from her brother, like she would love to know it. And I said, okay, just so you know, I can't really control it at this point, but if I do get anything or feel anything in the gym, I'll let you know. And if the details match, then we can kind of explore that conversation. So the same speech that I always give to everybody, I can't guarantee anything, but I'll try, and if I get anything, I'll tell you. So it was a few weeks later, I want to say, and I started to get some information. So I said to the coach that had lost the brother, I said, was your brother, what does his name end in Lee, like EY or Y or IE? Was he 22 and had dark hair and it was short? And a few of the pieces of information fit. She was like, kind of like, his nickname was this, and I was just like, I don't think so. I'm like, all the information should be correct if it's him. It should be like, yes, 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 not maybe, kinda. So I was like, maybe it's not him. So then as I continued to go to the gym, I go to the gym 5 days a week. This male figure kept following me around there. So he kind of told me that he was for someone who went behind the desk. So he told me that he was for someone that would go behind the desk at the gym. So that could only be a coach because no one else goes behind the desk where the computers are unless you work there. So then I was thinking to myself, well, I can't start asking all of the coaches who they know that's died that has these characteristics because they're all going to think I'm crazy. So this girl who the boy didn't belong to, she said, well, I'll ask around because it won't be as weird if I ask. And I'll just ask anyone if they had a friend die from when they were younger. And I was like, okay, like if you ask, maybe it'll be less weird, and try to bring it up naturally. So it was a few weeks later again, and there was this one coach who didn't coach too often. She coached about once a week, and I don't often make it to her class, but I happened to be at her class that day, and she said, hey, Steph, the other coach told me that you had a spirit following you around. I think he belongs to me. And I was like, oh, really? And I said, his name ends in IE or Y, and he was young when he passed away, and I feel like it was all of a sudden. And I started telling her what I knew. I knew just a few things. I knew it was a sudden death. He had dark hair. He was young. And there was kind of a lot of questions around how he died. I was like, it doesn't feel like a suicide, but it also don't feel like an accident. I'm not quite sure. And she was like, yeah, that's my friend, Ashley. And I was like, no, I said it's a boy. And I was kind of like, oh, no, it's not him. And I was ready to walk away. And she said, no, the boy's name was Ashley. She said he was 22 when he died. He had dark hair. And she said we were really good friends at the time. And when the other coach was telling me this story, I was like, oh my God, that's for me. She said, why would he be here for me? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it was because she was asking me about like young boys, and then I was trying to see like what I could pick up, and it wasn't her brother, but it was someone for you who is still here a lot, and I'm not really quite sure. And she was like, yeah, we were really good friends, and what had happened was they were at a party. They don't really know what happened, but he was drinking or on drugs or something happened where they were in the backyard and he was laying on the ground and he was just really drunk, and a few people walked over to him and tried to get him to like get up and bring him inside, and he just got up and he ran off of a cliff. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, yeah, she said it was really sad and it was really hard and no one really knows what happened. And I was like, okay. I was like, he's really showing me that he was not in his right mind. So I feel like there was some kind of substance in his body or something happened. Like he wasn't killing himself. I don't really think he knew what he was doing. Like I feel kind of confused. And she said, yeah, we kind of think that's what happened too, but we never could confirm anything. She said it was just like this really sudden and crazy thing that happened when we were younger. And she's like, this was like 10 years ago. So I haven't even thought about him in so long. I'm surprised that he's here with me. And I was like, oh, like it's people always kind of stay with us, especially if you were an important part in his life. Like you never know why spirits kind of follow us around. And she kind of said, wow, that's really interesting. I wasn't expecting anything to happen, especially to me and especially kind of with him, but thank you for telling me. So then I'm going to come to my last story, and I'm going to explain what happened before this because it kind of is important. So sometimes I have spirits following me around and they'll be with me until I find their owners. Sometimes they tell me who they're for, or they'll tell me something about how I would be connected to the person that knows them. Sometimes they don't tell me anything. And this is just a thing that I've kind of gotten used to. So it happened with Josh when he was in my house for a week before I figured out who he was. And it's happened a few other times as well. So in this certain scenario, I was in Vancouver visiting a friend. We'll call this friend Kristen. So it was just when I was starting my podcast and I was visiting Kristen in Vancouver. So she was telling me about how her friend was also starting a podcast and about how we should meet. And I said, okay, that's super cool. We could talk about, how we're both starting a podcast. So I ended up meeting this girl on the trip and we chatted a little bit, and she was kind of like, I have someone that I would like to connect with. And instantly I was like, is it an ex-boyfriend that committed suicide? And she said, yes. How do you know that? And I said, it's kind of how it works. I was like, did he look like this and this? And she said, yes, it's what he looked like. She's like, but I'm not ready to talk to him now. I'm not ready to get messages now. But it's super interesting that I could if I wanted to. And I said, okay. I'm like, let me know. We can always connect. But yeah, he's kind of here if you want to talk to him. And she said, okay. So fast forward a few weeks later, I'm back home in Banff and I was trying to go to sleep, and this boy came back to me, and I thought that it was for her again, for Kristen's friend. And I was literally falling asleep, and this man, he appeared in the bottom of my bed. Kind of describe how it happens. I don't actually see a person at the bottom of my bed. It's kind of like if you were sleeping and you could tell someone walked in your room. It's like that. So I could tell that there was someone at the bottom of my bed. And then I can see what he looks like in my mind's eye. So he was this tall guy, dark hair, and he had dark skin. Dark skin, like he wasn't brown, he wasn't black, but he had like dark tan skin. Like it was like leathery. And he was just like this really dark skinned person. And he started to tell me some information. So I still remember I tried to kind of ignore it 3 times. So he would tell me some stuff, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to bed. I'll just ask Kristen tomorrow. And then it was like more and more and more. And I was like, oh, I'll just tell her tomorrow. I'll remember all this. And then I just had this like urge where I'm like, I can't sleep. I need to text her. So I'm actually going to pull up the text messages that I sent to her and read them to you because it was kind of the way that I had to blurt out this information. So it was 11:05 p.m. I said, hey, you up. Is your friend whose friend passed away a tall male with dark skin, like brown skin, died aged 30 or younger? Tall, big guy, dark short hair, dark features. And she wasn't answering me, so I typed like, Kristen. And then I said, and did he die of something of the throat? I feel choked. It was a tragic death. She answered me, I don't know how old or how tall he is, but it was throat related. She said, do I send this to my friend? So then I replied, yeah, see if the information fits. I said, if it is her, I feel like I was involved with her romantically or we were really close. She meant a lot to me, but she was special in a different kind of way. He's also talking about his brother. This could be someone close to him, but I feel like it's his actual brother. And something with my left ear. He's not scary, but I feel scared. Did he die in a scary situation or would he have felt uncomfortable? And she wasn't answering me. I was like, that was all different messages. So I said, okay, I have to sleep now. If I get more information, I'll send it to you. So then she messaged me about an hour later and I was still awake. She said he doesn't have a brother and wasn't dark-skinned. He was only 1/4 native. But she said she's still interested, but that it scares her. I said, okay, if the details aren't right, it also could not be for her. She said, okay, but you are right about the throat. I was like, yeah, but more details need to be correct. There was someone else who asked me about a friend, but I can't remember who. I'll find out who this guy belongs to. Okay, talk to you tomorrow. Good night. The next morning. Okay, last thing. He was wearing a long sleeve collared blue and black squared checkered shirt with dark jeans and dress shoes. He dressed well. Is this description not making sense for her? Sorry, I was half asleep last night. So then she sent me a screenshot of her sending what I was saying to her friend. And she said, he doesn't have a brother. This is so interesting. I love this stuff, but it also scares me. And then I just responded, okay, clearly this isn't like her boyfriend. It's for someone else. I just thought of her and thought maybe this guy would be for her. And she was like, no, I don't think it's for her. Like, too many details aren't correct. So we left it at that. Okay, so I'm going to draw out the timeline for this because this was actually the longest time someone has been with me before I actually found their owner. So when I went to Vancouver to visit my friend Kristen, it was the middle of April. When we were exchanging those text messages, it was the end of April, so it was about 2 weeks after I got home. Then the first week of May, I went to an energy worker in the valley, and I kind of asked her some questions. I said, I have a few people following me around right now, and I don't know who they belong to, and it's been a while. And she said, why don't you just ask them who they're for? And I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. She said, yeah, ask them who they're for, and if their message isn't meant to be delivered by you, tell them to leave you alone. And I was like, oh, wow, like, okay. So she helped me, and I kind of asked this man with the dark skin who he was for. And he told me that I don't know the person directly, but they're 3 degrees of separation from me. So I know someone that knows this person. So like a friend of a friend or something like that. And I was going to meet this person, and he did have a message that needed to be delivered. And I said, well, okay, like I'm just going to keep waiting. So that was in May. Fast forward to, I'm going to actually check Instagram to see when it was, June 25th. So almost 2 months later. So I had a friend from back home in Ontario that was coming to Banff for her bachelorette party. And she said, hey, Steph, like me and 7 girls are going to be in Banff this weekend. Like, I'd love if you could join on whatever festivities you could. And I was so down. She was a really good friend of mine in Ontario, and I was super excited that she was having her bachelorette in Banff. So I was like, absolutely, I will come. I'll try to get as much time off as I can. So it was the Friday night, and we were all going out to eat. And she said that they were just going to stay at the restaurant in their hotel because they were tired, but I was welcome to join them. And I really wanted to see her, so I was like, yeah, I'll come join you guys. I'm done work at this time. I'll meet you at the restaurant. So she was there on her trip with 7 girlfriends, all from Ontario. And I was the 8th person. So when I joined the group, I didn't know anyone except for the bride. And I introduced myself to everyone, and she kind of spilled the beans that she had told them all that I was a medium and that I was going to be starting a podcast and all these stories that have happened that she experienced because she was there for when we were all at the cottage, and she was there for kind of when I was experiencing all these things for the first time and telling the stories to my friends. So she was like, just so you know, I've already told the girls that you're a medium and they all have a million questions for you. So, like, after we order, if you don't mind, we've kind of all would like to talk about it. And I laughed and I said, this weekend's supposed to be about you, but like, yeah, I don't mind talking about it and answering their questions. So after the normal introductions and the hey, how are yous, we all went around the table and kind of talked about where we're from and what we did just so that I could get to know all the girls. And then we kind of jumped right into the conversation about me, my journey, how I'm a medium, and all these things. So pretty much the entire dinner was talking about essentially episodes like 1 to 5. Telling them different stories, telling them how it works, telling them the common questions that people asked. And of the 7 people that were there, 2 of the girls were the bride's sisters. And one of them kind of asked, well, how does it work? And I remember saying, well, it's kind of hard to describe how it works. I get information and I have this sense of knowing, and then I ask people around me, and sometimes people follow me around and until I find their owners. And she was like, oh, like, do you have anyone following you around right now? And I was like, yeah, actually, I have 2 people. So I started with the tall man with the dark hair. And I said, I actually have this one man. He's tall. He has dark skin. It's like leathery skin. He's not brown, but he has really dark skin. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but he's tall, dark hair. I'm like, he dresses really nicely. And he's told me that he's 3 degrees of separation from me. So I know someone who knows the person that he's connected to. And he's also told me that it might have been a suicide, but I'm not sure because he was afraid at the end, and there seems to be like this flip-flopping. The person he's trying to connect with was either like his girlfriend or they weren't really dating, but she was really special to him. Like they have this special connection. So I feel like this person was very special to me in like a different kind of way if she wasn't my girlfriend. And then 3 of the girls at the table start crying. And I was like, uh-oh. Kind of thinking in my head, this always happens. I always make people cry at the worst possible times. And so after a few minutes, when the girls had calmed down and everyone had stopped crying, I kind of asked if they wanted to let me know what was happening. And of the 7 girls, the bride was there with 2 of her sisters. And there was one sister that couldn't make it to the bachelorette party because she lived overseas in Europe. And they said, we know that man. That's our sister's ex-boyfriend who did commit suicide. And they weren't actually dating at the time, but they were still talking. And it was this weird situation. And they said, how would you know that? Like, how would he be with you? How could he have been with you for so many months? How did he know you were going to meet us? Like, it doesn't make sense. You just decided to come to this dinner today. How did he know months ago that you were going to meet us? And I didn't really have an explanation because I didn't know how this soul would know that I was going to be having dinner with these 7 girls in June, and he had been following me around since April. So when situations like this happen, it does kind of make me believe that there is a bigger plan, that the universe kind of knows what's going to happen. And that's why I always trust that what's going to happen is going to happen and is meant to happen. Because things like this do happen where a soul will be with me for weeks before I even meet the person. How did they know that I was going to meet their mom in 4 weeks? How did they know that I was going to be at a party where I meet this person? And just different things that happen. It all is just a little eerie. So you just have to trust the universe. So after this experience at dinner, everyone was a little bit freaked out and a little bit on edge, and they were kind of like, okay, we get it. That's how it happens. Like, that was super cool. We can't believe we all just got to experience a first-hand experience when a lot of people at the table had never had a direct experience with a medium, but they were very interested in the idea of it. So that night was just a very chill night, which worked out really good. We just had dinner, hung out in the hotel room, and then I did see the girls throughout the weekend some more, but this was the only experience that we had. So those are my 3 stories of kind of my mediumship in real life, how I go about my day-to-day, and how this little gift just pops up when I'm out and about. So thank you for listening. If you want to stay in contact with me, again, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. And if you are using iTunes, I would really love a rating and review. If you just scroll down to the bottom, you can put a rating and a review. It takes 2 seconds, and I would really appreciate it. All right, guys, until next Tuesday, have a great week. Bye.